Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? Welcome to Beely's watercolor painting. These are some of the paintings we've been doing lately, but today we're going on a slightly different direction. I'm going to take this. I just wanted to take a minute to show you guys how to take off a painting that's finished from a little block, from a block. Now, as you can see already, you might be able to see, I have activated the paints. So that means I have put some water on the paints. You can do it two ways. You can spray it like this, right? Or water won't hurt them. Well, I mean, there is a level of water that would hurt them, but not this level. And I mean, it wouldn't hurt them. It just would make it different for you to paint. And this painting, this is from the other week. If you can see, look at all the little gold flecks. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, we're going to use a sharp object such as these scissors. We're going to find the corner where the block is open. We're going to slide the scissors very gently, and we're going to really gently move the block away, or separate the block or the painting from the block. That's what I mean. If I can speak. There we are. All right. There we are. So now we have our painting completely unscathed, and we have a fresh block. I wanted to show you a couple really easy abstracts today. And let me do it. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to double check that everything is copacetic here on our channel, because a couple weeks ago, all right, perfect. I can hear myself, I can see myself, well, I can see my desk, so that is perfect. I got a couple brushes here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely wet this paper. Just give it a nice little wash, or spray rather. This way I'm activating the paper and creating an opportunity. I'm going to put these brushes in the water so this is a really, really simple painting, and it's just going to take a few minutes. I'm planning to do 2 different paintings today. So let's just start this one. This is something I saw on a Mexican blanket, and I just thought it was just beautiful the way this all worked out. So basically what they did, and I wonder I can do it. Okay. Maybe they did it like this. Now, to tell you the truth, I saw this painting or this design, this idea on a Mexican blanket, and it was not a painting. It was not a painting. When I saw this, it was a blanket, a woven blanket. But I think that we can turn it into a beautiful painting quite easily. I'm just going to activate it with more water. Now you can see my turquoise here is giving me some really nice textures here in the sky. I'm going to take something darker, maybe this one, and just give it a little bit of a definition here in the mountain. So what we're painting is an abstract, but it's an abstract of mountains. And as soon as I stop fussing with the sky, I can certainly show you my concept. But first I have to fuss with the sky, because I want to make a quick painting, but at the same time I would like to have that dimension that you do from layering. So just creating, and you know what I'm going to do? Look at this. Right in here. And with watercolors, when they're not really behaving, you can see I'm thinking they're not behaving, but you can always. Alright, and it's right away more sky-like. And I'm just going to move it this way and that. And, now I'm satisfied with my sky. I don't know how the rest of these will go because I feel that my paper is a little wet, too wet. When your paper is a little wet, you can just. I want my paper to be moist, damp, but I don't necessarily want my paper to be wet. I'm going to go in with this yellow here and do my first. So these will be mountains and villages. This is the design that I saw on this blanket. And this is the design I wanted to transform into watercolors. Now, you may or may not know, but this is complete experimentation. Just see my water pooling there. Complete experimentation. Oh, and I realized I forgot something. Bear with me a minute. I'm just going to grab some paper towel. This cloth is a different kind of cloth is one thing, and I like using cloth. It's much more environmentally friendly. But in watercolor painting, in my opinion, there is a certain time where a paper towel is indispensable. Unless maybe I got some gauze and I started reusing it, but I'm not sure. So I know it looks like I just messed it up, but I think it'll correct itself because watercolors flow. Watercolors flow. So one thing I'm not doing here enough is activating the paint with water enough. But okay, now next color. This color I should blend for these to be. See, because in reality what I've been doing is not really correct. Here we have some nice orange. We can go in to here like so. And just making sure that this line here is strong and powerful. There we go. Now I'm going to darken that red a little bit more with another darker red. Maybe even a little bit of this color. Right in with the darker red. Again, as soon as you see me creating these lines, you can tell that I am not mixing enough water in my painting. And so when the paint is too thick, or too dense, too painty, when it's too, you see, a lot of us are used to working with acrylics or oils or thicker paints, right? And the amount of water and water activation that one has to work with in order to achieve these really spectacular watercolor effects, it's something that's very, very unfamiliar to those of us who have been working with acrylic or oil. But with the patience that you have, see, it's coming up lines here. The other thing that you have to remember, or you don't have to remember, but it behooves us to remember, is that watercolor continues to change, right? So even as I'm creating and my mouse, even as I'm creating these colors and overlapping these colors, they're going to continue changing, right? I'm going in with a really thick yellow here to create a little bit more definition. And then remembering to add some water to this. I don't think it's ideal to have these lines, but at the same time, I like it darker like this. So, going in with a little bit of water to blend this out a little. Now again, even though I have professional watercolor paper, sorry, and it is a really good brand. It's Fabriano, Aquarello, Italy, very nice. However, I just have an idea for this guy. However, it is not 100% cotton paper. And because it is not 100% cotton paper, it will react differently. I'm just putting some little bit of salt on the sky here to create a different texture. I saw it doing sort of a salty texture already, so I'm just going to maybe get some really watery paint and just drop it in a few places here. Because the sky will correct itself. And if it doesn't, we'll just spray it with water. So, give it a little bit of a sky texture. Create a little bit of a... Right. So now holding my painting at an angle, because I don't want all my oranges to start bleeding like the yellow just did. No worries. No worries. We'll just pick that yellow up. This is what error and experimentation, the value of those things, right? Because you're laying down color and you're trying to move it, and I'm trying to move it today, but you try to move it other days. And just creating that, just going in with a smaller black brush and moving some paint around, creating more textures, moving some of these droplets that I dropped that didn't disperse properly. The salt will continue working on these colors. And you know what? I'm happy with this. Now remember, all your paintings don't have to be realistic. It's not about realism. It's not about realism. It's about expression. Just taking a sip of my coffee here, going back to the big paintbrush. I'm just going to check. I just rubbed it a little bit. I'm just going to make sure that the water flows. And here. And so... going in with the orange to all the way to the edge. All right. Now for a brighter color, a more defined color, I'm going to go in with a bright red for our next hill. And as you can tell in the fabric, when you're weaving the fabric to create this design, it would not it would not blend in like that, right? But this is a different take on the same kind of image, right? So creating those, and again, not enough water, not enough water. Creating the colors overlapping, and you'll see what we'll do later. It'll be super cute. And you know, I am going to switch the paint to green. I have a couple of greens pre-mixed here on my palette. Just going to go into these greens, and I added a little bit more emerald green to brighten up my color here. I just think it's dark enough. And working with this is from another day, so I'm activating the color in the corners, making sure I have enough of a mixture. Going in with a darker green. There we go. So I mixed emerald green, forest green, and sap green to achieve this color. But we can work with this color some more. I'm just going to move the water. See, I'm just moving the water around. And the next one, I'm going to make it darker. That's enough darker. And we're going to put it over here. I like this color, so I'm just going to treat this corner with this beautiful dark emerald green. The key here is going to be not to lay it in a way that we do not have all these lines. So just layering. Oh, there's a hair. Right, that's how you deal with the hair. Okay. And so whenever watercolor is not behaving like it's, I'm just going to put a lot more paint, is acting, is making all these lines, I often am tempted to take that area and treat it with salt. I'll show you how to do it, but at first I want to have like a nice saturation of this green here, a nice layering. And then the other side needs to have more. Don't worry, I'll treat this with salt in just 2 seconds here. The other side is a lot lighter, so I'm using this really light green. Let me check what the color is. Permanent green hue. And I'm going to finish this last section here with permanent green hue. Now, just like oranges and reds, the greens overlap easily, and there we go. Now I just want to activate more of these edges here, pull the paint and lay more paint on this. Now as you can see, these two things are, you can see all the lines and the marks and everything, these two bottom ones. And then this one I'm going to treat differently because I don't like how the way this is laying. So I don't like that one line I did. I'm gonna have to fix this. You can see what line I'm talking about, I'm sure. So I'm just going to lift lift as if you had a magic eraser in your paintbrush, right? Lifting. So it's a little uneven, but this isn't gonna create any texture on these upper orange ones. It's only going to create texture in the sections that are already wet or still wet. I am wanting to lift some of that blue here from the orange, and just a tiny bit of definition there, and you can see all the lines here. Just going in with the water just a little bit wherever there is you see those lines. I don't want to see any lines in my final painting, so even though I've already treated it with salt, I'm creating an opportunity where this becomes more texture and less lines. Just more paint. This is going to be more realistic, right? And rinsing the salt off the brush before I dip it back into the paint. Coming in with a really bright paint to brighten the center. Making these little corrections here just to, oops, a little bit of green, it won't hurt it. Moving the paint. As you can see, my paper is buckling a little bit, right? So right there, I'm just moving the paint around to work around this buckle here, which is happening. So even though the paper is attached on all sides, it is a block. It is a professional block. It is not 100% cotton block. And my paint is sitting on top, as opposed to, you know, we can work with it with this little magic bottle. This doesn't have to be separate because we can just put this like this. Right. And this one's more brown. I'm just giving these guys a little bit more definition. I'm trying not to make these lines very obvious. I mean, honestly, I could work on this for hours. I could play with this for hours. And this is the definition of overworking a painting. But I'm just wanting to make it a little bit better. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Give me 2 seconds. This is going to dry for a second. I'm just going to check on my dog here. I'm not sure what's going on right there. Luna? Oh, you're there. Okay, you stay there. I didn't see you. No, don't go outside. You're fine. You stay where you were. Okay. Definitely you can see these errors on camera way better than in real life. Here the green seeping into the red. But I mean, that's part of the happy accidents of watercolor painting, right? But I am going to fix it a little bit. Not this one. my big brush, my red, and just creating. This part of the painting is very wet, so just giving it a little bit more definition. Now, I am going to stop fussing with this because it's never going to be done, and I am totally overworking it. Although I am playing with the colors and I'm liking it. So don't judge yourself, right? Like, here I am thinking, oh, you know, I'm doing this video and I'm overworking this painting. But what part of painting is painting, and what part of painting is actually the experience of moving the colors around the page, of creating those textures and allowing the paint to just flow, right? Just a little bit definition, but here we are, right? So let me just dry that for a second, and I'll show you another thing I wanted to show you. There we go, perfect. All right. Oh yes, I think this green needs a little spray here. You know what? I'm gonna set this aside for, well, you know what? No, I'm gonna try this. As I'm drying it, I'm pushing the paint around with the hairdryer. I'm going to do another layer in some of these oranges to make it more brilliant. There's something I don't like how it's coming up here, so I'm just going to stamp it out and we'll fix it. Like where this bled in here, I like that. I think that looks cool. But we're just going to continue drying it and give it another definition with another wash after. So I still see a lot of unevenness in these little mountains, and the blanket was really, really defined. So I'm gonna do another layer here. Maybe we'll just do this painting. We'll do right today. I was thinking about squeezing in another one, but this one actually, it seems that this one needs a little bit more work. And again, going from acrylic or oil, some things are completely different in watercolor painting, completely different. But as you can see, a second wash right away makes it look a lot more fuller, opaque, And it's funny because my eyes can't see the imperfections as well as the camera. So I'm kind of going with the camera here. Now the very important thing, I did mention it at the beginning of this video, but I just want to reiterate because it's so important, is at the beginning, a lot of people, when they learn watercolor painting, they use their paints a lot too much too dry. And I'm myself at fault for this. The old habits, the techniques of painting that I learned in my youth are very, very different than this style of painting. So, see, it's coming with the second wash, all the colors are blending in properly. And I think that when people are afraid of overworking a painting, a lot of the time they end up maybe with unsatisfactory results because they don't. Overworking does not mean layering. You know, there's a towel you can, especially if you're working on something realistic or something that needs a lot of detail work. I just dipped my paintbrush in water there. Smeared the rest of this paint. I mean, who's to say that these lines are undesirable, right? I am just not desiring too many lines on these. And just having these bold colors next to each other, I'm really loving this. Of course, I'm messing up that red again, but that's okay. So, if we do this, what does this mean? Not enough water. Not enough water. Creating a wash that can... There we go. I might have to go over that one again. I do not like the way that turned out. I'm gonna do another layer on this one because there's no way I can change this. And then mixing these two colors, make a thick enough wash. See this wash that is evening out the color? It's just a thin layer of even paint just to even it out. Did not work with this one. We'll have to do this one again. But we're succeeding in this one. There we go. Now this green I'm kind of tempted to leave the way it is because it is quite interesting. This green down on the bottom, I'm going to cover it up, but without removing all the texture. Some of the texture will stay because the texture is very interesting here. It's just it's looking a little rough because the saturation isn't there. So creating the saturation and Maybe I'll try this guy. And again, more water. Just do a little wash. I don't want to do too much. You know, we're always learning. We're always, with every single painting. And it doesn't matter how long you've been painting, if you've been painting for 2 years, 6 months, or if you've been painting for 50 years. Every single time you take a paintbrush in your hand, you're learning. You're learning new ways. And moving that salt around. Just laying down the color here and not succeeding at smoothing it out again. Just lifting your painting and resting it on a somewhat of an angle can make some beautiful textures. The textures here, I believe, could be improved. There's still a bit of a line here. And then just creating that little bit of definition in this. And again, running with the paint here. Just to create those really sharp lines from each. That's wherever it's a little confused, we're going to fix it with a marker like we often do. But just putting it on an angle right now is giving me the opportunity to dry it and have the paint move in the direction I want it moving, as opposed to going up towards the sky. Notice when I did the sky, I was tilting it the opposite direction, wanting it to move away from, or float that way. But now we want it flow, not float, flow this way. Just going to fill in some of these missing lines. Don't like that. And blend it in with water, not leaving any sort of marks. There's a bit of a mark. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's part of the beauty of watercolor painting. So don't overthink it. I lost my little piece of paper here. Don't overthink it too much. I'm gonna try this one more time, and then we're gonna go with our layer, our final layer, and it'll be lovely. Now, even though in this layer you can still see some of the brush marks there, It is not quite dry, but I'm not going in with more paint. I'm going in with a marker. And because I'm going in with a marker, I think it'll be fine the way it is. So I'm just going to give it one more moment. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to give it a little bit. Now you have to remember, if you're drying it like this, like fast with a hairdryer like I did, it could fix the buckling. Like it fixed the buckling for me a little bit. But if your page is not attached, it might actually make the buckling worse. But just to finish this painting, we're just going to give it a little bit of definition with a marker. So this is inspired by a traditional Mexican design, or I've also seen it in a Guatemalan design. But as you can see, when you lay the layers of color on the paper and then go in with a marker, you don't actually even need to be very detailed, or your hand doesn't have to be exactly following everything, because the marker will determine how your eye looks at the painting, right? So these marker lines are actually providing that extra definition. I kind of faltered there, so I'm just going to straighten this out. The little grains of salt in a few places where because I didn't use salt on these mountains. I used salt over here, down here, and I used salt up there for texture. This texture is just from water, but each of these mountains has a little texture. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use the big marker. So here, far away, I'm going to put a little tree, maybe a little pine tree. And here I'm just going to just whimsical little houses. And you know what? I'll do a few more with this, because I started off with this thick line, but you know what? Maybe it's fine with the thick lines. A little pine tree here. You know what? I'm going to do it all with the thick lines. I was going to do it with the fine liner. I can show you what I mean. I think the darkened roofs look good. Now, these traditional blanket designs, they're very the salt. these traditional blanket designs, they're very simplistic. That's what I'm trying to say. The design is very simplistic. And that's kind of what I'm repeating here in this. We have a little humans. Here I have another little hat. And I am going to blacken all the roofs, just because roofs are usually a contrasting color and it'll make it look right. Maybe do a little bush right next to this. And you know, this one's missing out. I'm just going to try. Oops, I have to make sure. I don't want the little bits of salt to be left on my marker because it's an art marker. That's the fine liner. I could make the windows with that fine liner, but I kind of like it with the thick marker. And there you go. A little, maybe we can have a little hut here still. And there you have it. A little design, a little painting based on a traditional Mexican blanket. Maybe one more tree here. Or South American blanket. And maybe it's not as many people. Maybe there should be more people. Right? The people are very simplistic. Right? It's actually interesting because I just added a few people throughout this, and it seems to be, there's more life in it. There's more life in this. Now we could keep going and we could do some other elements. For example, let's see if that, no, I have to use the paint. This is a gold marker, but unfortunately on these paints it's not working. I could use some gold, but you know what? I know I'm going to finish this painting. I could do highlights. I could do gouache. I could do make white highlights in here. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the thing I did last week, and I'm going to be happy with it. Or 2 weeks ago. Oh yes, apologies. Last week I wasn't there. I had a bit of an accident and had to recover. I fell down the stairs and I was unable to provide you content. I'm all better this week. Well, mostly better. But look at this. So I'm going to grab my Sharpie, and we're just going to splatter some gold on this. And there you go. That's how we finish a painting in Bibli's Watercolor University. We have texture, we have some gold splatters, we have some houses, and all together comes into a cute little abstract painting that's wall ready. And yeah, oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna do one more little dude right there, overlooking it all. All right, well, thank you very much for this little abstract painting. We're gonna go back to more difficult things next week after I go over some more. And as you can see, when I'm finished with the painting, I'm actually taking my palette. I'm not removing the paint because I'm gonna still use these paints for other paintings, what I have blended in here. So I'm just going to cover this up, and that's how it's gonna stay until the next time I'm painting. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a wonderful